Suffering exists as the consequences of our limitations. Every single person who's alive is going to die. Suffering exists as the consequences of our limitations. Every single person who's alive is going to die. And every single person who's alive is going to deal with serious physical illness and mental distress. And so the fact of our finitude is essential to the nature of our being, and we're forced to deal with it on an ongoing basis. If you could do absolutely anything you wanted at any point and be anywhere you wanted, and be anything you wanted, if there was nothing that was out of your reach, there would be nothing to do. There's no story, and there's no being, and there's no story, and there's no being, and there's something about being that is a story, and without limitation, there's no story. There's no story. There's no story. There's no story. Suffering exists as the consequences of our limitations. Every single person who's alive is going to die. Suffering exists as the consequences of our limitations. Every single person who's alive is going to die. Humans are vulnerable, and that's tragic. But if tragedy is the price that we pay for existence, then so be it. So tragedy itself can't be regarded as evil. It's a condition of existence. So earthquakes aren't evil, and cancer isn't evil, and mental illness isn't evil, and predators aren't evil. They just are part of the way things are. But there are certain categories of human action that are definitely outside the parameters of mere tragedy, and those are the things we really have to get a handle on. Suffering exists as the consequences of our limitations. Every single person who's alive is going to die. Suffering exists as the consequences of our limitations. Every single person who's alive is going to die.
All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Progress Report, newest, hottest show on YouTube and the rest of the internet, taking over the Monday night slot, one episode at a time. And we have an absolutely fantastic guest joining us here on the second episode, Mr. Pedro Gonzalez, one of my favorite Twitter follows. Let me just get this out of the way right now. I put Pedro's Twitter handle, the link in the description. So click that right now if you're a Twitter user. Make sure you follow this guy if you're not already. And he's also a writer. You are at, what is it, Chronicles?
Chroniclesmagazine.org.
Writer at Chronicles Magazine, and just a great political thinker. Maybe you might have seen him on Tucker Carlson's show at some point, or one of these other. I know you've been doing some streams with Orrin McIntyre. I caught a little bit of that myself. So thank you for being here. It's a great honor. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks so much. It never stops being surreal to hear people say that kind of stuff, because although I've been on, shows like Tucker and all that over the last 2 years or so, I'm still fairly new to like the media circuit, which includes like YouTubing and podcasts and all that stuff. So it never stops being cool to hear people say that stuff. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, heartfelt, as we say in the business here.
Yeah.
And guys, let me know about the audio, especially when we get the video going. I noticed last week the video was quite loud and me and Josh were a bit quiet and nobody told me in the chat. So if there's any audio issues, let me know, all right, in the chat. I'm counting on you guys. Couple quick announcements. Well, just to let know, because the show's new, I just want to reiterate what's going on. So we're going to watch some of the videos from Can't Stop Progress. If you're missing the old format, you can still get it, but it's on Odyssey only. So if you want to watch the full raw episode of Can't Stop Progress, head over to my Odyssey channel. Last night's episode was 2 hours long. Okay, I've trimmed it down to 30 minutes, so we're not going to take up too much of Pedro's time, but so if you want to see the whole thing, you can watch there. I made it like kind of more serious clips because Pedro is like a serious thinker. I want to respect his time. You know, if I have a more like comedic guest, we might do more of the goofy clips. So just so you know the kind of vibe. Personally, I'm excited about that. I'm interested to hear some thoughtful takes. So I think it's going to be good. And the other thing I want to quickly mention is that I have set up a fundraiser, a Give, Send, Go for the lawsuit. We're going to war over the lawsuit. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I'll do a separate video on some point, but there is a link in the description if you want to support the legal fund, the I Hypocrite Legal Fund. Okay. So before we get to the video, breaking news. Oh, people saying I'm too loud. Maybe I can turn. Oh, my gain's already turned down. I'll just talk a little bit quieter. Let me know if that helps. Tone it down a bit. I'm all excited.
There's a lot to be excited and angry about right now. So.
Yeah, so Twitter has blown up over the last couple, they're joking, they're messing with me. Twitter's blown up over the last couple hours with the news that Donald Trump's home was raided. We have a statement from the president. I want to get Pedro's thoughts on this. I'll just read a little bit. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but Trump says that it is prosecutorial misconduct, the weaponization of the justice system, and an attack by radical left Democrats who desperately don't want me to run for president in 2024, especially based on recent polls, and who will likewise do anything to stop Republicans and conservatives in the upcoming midterm elections. Such an assault could only take place in broken third world countries. Sadly, America has now become one of those countries, corrupt at a level not seen before. It's funny, when I read Trump's words, I always read it in his voice and cadence. You can tell he writes his own stuff, because it just it sounds like him. But what is we don't know a lot about it, but what's your initial reaction to this whole thing?
You're right. We don't know a whole lot. I think the Washington Times was probably the first place to break this story because I have the app on my phone, and then I think Axios did afterwards. But anyways, it's developing, right? Like all we know is that the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago. That's it. But I think the bottom line is that Trump is right, that essentially this is the kind of stuff that you expect in a banana republic, right? Not ostensibly a first world country with a functioning legal system. So, and that is totally irrelevant to the fact of what you think of Trump. Like, even if you're critical of the guy, you don't like his personality, you don't like his style, you don't like his rhetoric, whatever, that's totally irrelevant to that. If they can do this to the former president of the United States, they can do this to anybody. So it doesn't stop at Trump. And I think it's interesting because, this is happening amid the whole Alex Jones trial, which I think is also part of this broader thing of cracking down on people who dissent, on people who say the wrong thing, the implications of basically a trial in which you have a judge saying it's irrelevant what you think is true. Essentially, the state. I
actually have that clip in the video.
Yeah,
tonight.
I mean that is significant.
Yeah.
Right. Because what is being said is that essentially the judge of what is and is not true is, in this case, we have to assume the state, right? And then you have the IRS thing happening. So I think all of these things need to be taken into consideration together. The raid on Mar-a-Lago, the Alex Jones trial, the expansion of the IRS, all these things are connected. And I think the bottom line is that it's characteristic of Trump to say, maybe be a little bit like, to sound like he's going over the top. It starts with, these are dark times for our nation. And you might roll your eyes with that, but it's like, no, it's actually true. Like, Trump is actually getting at a truth here, like he typically does. This does not stop with him. Again, even if you don't like him, this affects you. This applies to you. What's happening now?
Yeah, something I saw on Twitter, and I don't know how true it is, but the word on the street is that this is like Trump took classified documents back to his home, and he was supposed to return them, and he was taking too long to return them, and that's supposedly what the raid is about, which could be true. We don't know for sure, but if that's the case, I mean, we know what happened with Hillary Clinton, right? In fact, right. I think in his full statement he mentioned that. Yeah. That she like deleted 30,000 emails or whatever after she was like subpoenaed for them or something.
I recall like aides bashing hard drives with hammers or something like that, right? No, that's the thing with all of this. It's like, well, hold on. There's a good explanation for this. Like, Trump did something wrong that's like legitimately, an offense or something. And it's like, I actually don't have the memory capacity to go through all of the other things that American politicians have done that are as bad or worse than whatever you claim Trump has done, right, that merit life in prison or the death penalty or something like that. Like, it's such a joke. It seems like Trump is actually, I think, the only politician who we've ever tried to hold accountable for something he, supposedly did wrong. Everyone else seems to get off pretty easy. It's just him that for some reason he's the only guy that all of these laws and the Constitution, things that no politician actually cares about, seem to apply to him now.
Are we going to see any kind of real reaction from the Republicans? We have this tweet from Kevin McCarthy who says, "I've seen enough. The Department of Justice has reached an intolerable state of weaponized politicization. Yeah. When Republicans take back the House, we will conduct immediate oversight of this department, follow the facts, and leave no stone unturned. Attorney General Garland, preserve your documents and clear your calendar."
I don't know.
It does kind of sound like, you just wait, buddy. One of these days.
Yeah. You just wait, man. I'm going to lift some weights and then I'm coming for you. Like, it's hard to take Kevin McCarthy seriously. It's hard to take the GOP seriously. I mean, I just tweeted about this because the first thing that came to mind, right, in the context of, I mean, a great example of what you just brought up, the whole like, well, people are saying that, well, hold on, maybe Trump did something bad. You have the whole like Stephen Bannon, Eric Holder comparison, right? Like, one of these people is held more accountable than the other for essentially doing the same thing. And so you have all of these different things that are happening that are really troubling and have far-reaching implications, right? And then all I can remember as soon as this happens is Mitch McConnell saying that, "I think we can all agree that the war in Ukraine is the most important thing happening in the world right now." Right. So it's really difficult for me to take GOP leadership seriously when they say, like, General Garland, clear your calendar, like, preserve your documents. Like, what? Is the Biden administration actually afraid of Kevin McCarthy? It's hard to believe that.
I saw you had a tweet, something along the lines of a governor should like use the National Guard to arrest the feds or something. Yeah. I don't think we're going to be seeing that, but it'd be pretty cool. It'd be pretty base move there, DeSantis.
I think of this this episode where Huey Long essentially sent a shot across the bow, and basically like threatened to have federal agents, like FDR's federal agents, arrested if they did things that could be argued were infringing on things that are reserved to the states under the 10th Amendment, right? So that's kind of where that was coming from, like that tweet. But I think Don Huffines, who recently who challenged Greg Abbott in Texas, I think in the past he's kind of talked about basically weaponizing the office of the governor to take on the federal government. Like he had quipped that he's going to cut off the water and electricity to like federal agencies in Texas, like the NSA building and stuff like that. And I mean, I'm not really joking when I say this stuff. Like, these are really drastic times. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you have a federal government that's doing this kind of stuff, like what is the alternative, right? And we kind of have an example of this with some governors like DeSantis basically refusing to go along with federal mandates to lock down under COVID, right? So like going further down that road and doing more radical things, like, you know, forcing a confrontation between like the state National Guard and like the FBI or whatever. I mean, we are really in uncharted waters here. I mean, Trump is actually right to say, like, it's hard to think of an example where something this extreme has happened, right, in modern American history.
Yeah. Well, on that note, and with Trump's words about descending into a third world or worse country, let's check out some video evidence. So the way this works, if you want to talk, just start talking. Okay. I'll pause the video. Okay. But don't feel like you have to comment on every single thing. But if you want to, definitely go ahead.
Her name is Britta Filter, and she is the Queen of New York. Yeah.
This is David French's church. These are the blessings of liberty that I've heard so much about. Every time I see this, I really do think to myself that the Inquisition was actually right, and in fact, it didn't go far enough, and we could use another one. I mean, this is. I recently tweeted about in the context of monkeypox how certain groups are considered like sacred people in American society, and by which I mean like their lifestyles, including their fetishes, are just like beyond reproach.
And drag queens might be at the top of that totem pole.
Yes. Know? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. Play the tape. Yeah, no, it's that's exactly what my thoughts are. These things happen for a reason. And in fact, the actual history of the Inquisition was essentially you had the opportunity to defend yourself in a courtroom. Libs really invented this whole narrative of these Inquisitions that made them seem a lot more draconian than I think they actually were.
I remember years and years ago on Facebook, I was arguing with some dude because he was posting this like downer stuff on Christmas Day, and I was like, buddy, it's Christmas, and because he's all like anti-religion. I wasn't even Christian at the time; I was an atheist myself, and he was like, "Oh, you mean like the millions of people who died in the Inquisition?" I was like, "I don't think that's right. I don't think it was that many, dude."
Billions. Yeah, we had to invent a new number for all the people.
I have to ask, can you hear the audio?
No, I can't, but I can hear it in my head because I've seen this video before.
Okay. Well, it's going to be a problem for some of the other clips, so I'm going to change the way I'm doing this. This happened with the last guest too, so I don't know why.
I didn't say anything because I assumed that you could hear it and the audience could hear it, but I couldn't for whatever reason. But I've seen this before, and I had issued my own hot take on it. So
yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say about that clip. To me, it's like, what can you really say? I guess
her name is Britta Filter.
Hold on a second. You can hear that, I think right?
The whole like the narrative that we've got this Christian nationalism that's like sweeping the country. I wish. I hope so, because that's like a much better, really, if you're and I'm saying this as someone who's like, I always refer to myself as a kind of like cultural Christian and a bad Catholic, because actually I think those labels describe the issue for me, succinctly. I don't really go to church that often, but much of my worldview and my sense of morality, my sense of right and wrong are informed by Christianity, right? And I would, if you put a gun to my head and forced me to choose between, drag queen prayer time and Christian nationalism, I'm going with Christian nationalism.
For sure.
It's not a hard choice for me,
Yeah.
So
my just 2 cents that I would throw onto this is that if anybody out there is thinking about trying out church and you see stuff like this and you're turned off, you just gotta find the right church. There are still good ones out there.
Yes.
Let's keep going.
I don't really believe that you could be a non-binary. Something about it doesn't make sense to me. How are you going to be a non-binary, but it's people who invented the gender binary, it's people who uphold the gender binary, it's people who spread the gender binary around the world to justify the oppression of Black and brown people globally. It's something about that just doesn't make sense. Like, how are people going to opt out of the gender binary? Meanwhile, we're seeing cis Black women being pushed out of, sporting events and stuff like that because their testosterone is too high. But we get to have people who the gender binary has done nothing but serve tell us that they want to opt out, and they're not dismantling the gender binary. It don't make sense.
I'm so deeply confused about what I just saw.
Yeah, I should have given a warning. Like, it's kind of confusing because she puts this white paper up and says people, and so it's like a clever way of saying white people, and it's maybe kind of jarring at first, but basically what she's saying is white people can't be non-binary because white people forced the binary onto the rest of the world, the gender binary.
Yeah.
And then she says that, and also cis Black women are being pushed out of sports because their testosterone is too high.
It's just like the female version of like the Hotep, right? The Black man. I think the Hotep is it's like a Black man who has kind of like views that are considered extremely politically incorrect. Like like they're completely against the sexual revolution stuff, the whole binary thing.
It's not nearly based like that at all.
Okay.
She's just saying white people. She likes the non-binary stuff.
Okay.
Like, she's saying break out of that, but white people aren't allowed to because white people are oppressors.
This is not the female Hotep. This is someone who basically thinks
it's not nearly that good. And when she's saying that she says Black cis women are being pushed out of sports, I think she's talking about Caster Semenya, which is the only one I really know about that happening to. She is intersex. Caster Semenya has XY chromosomes. I don't know how easy it is for me to switch between these. Oh, it's pretty easy, it turns out. She's just wrong on every
You just want to ask her, what do you want? Like, how can I help you?
You may not say to this jury that you complied with discovery. That is not true. You may not say it again. You may not tell this jury that you are bankrupt. That is also not true. You may have filed for bankruptcy. I don't know that, but I've heard that. That doesn't make a person or a company bankrupt. You're already under oath to tell the truth. You've already violated that oath twice today in just those two examples. It seems absurd to instruct you again that you must tell the truth while you testify, yet here I am. You must tell the truth while you testify. This is not your show. You need to slow down.
This is my reality TV
and
show,
not
your
take
reality.
what you see as opportunities to further the message you're wanting to further.
You can
And
tell that
instead,
like she savors every moment of lecturing Alex Jones. And yeah, I mean, and this whole thing of like, you filing for bankruptcy or whatever, truth is not, it's not really in your hands. It's in the hands of someone like a state authorized adjudicator or something like that.
Right. This is like the next natural evolution of the fact checking phenomenon that started in 2016 with the fake news, and fake news got Trump elected. And now it's like what you think you believe in court. If you say something that the fact checkers, we're going to hit you with like perjury or whatever. It doesn't matter what you believe. Yeah. And they're trying to destroy Alex Jones. I mean, what was it, like $50 million or something that, they're
trying to I think it's I mean, look, he probably could have defended himself better. There are people that have been kind of like critical of the way that he's handled himself and pointed out that maybe there are ways for him to do a better job of putting up like a better, case in his defense or whatever. But I think that maybe misses the point that this is about kind of narrative control. And the thing that comes to mind is this. I think it's a female New Zealand politician who, in a press conference, said recently, she was talking about, I think it was in the context of COVID and vaccines, basically saying like,
oh yeah, that's Jacinda, that's the prime minister. Yeah,
she's saying if you haven't heard it from us, it's not true.
Yeah. I mean, so we just saw the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, and they awarded Depp like $5 to $10 million, and people were saying like this never happens in libel cases. That's a huge amount. But the reason Depp got awarded $10 million or whatever it was is because he lost like his Pirates of the Caribbean contracts, right?
Yeah.
So he actually had like massive damages.
Yeah. His life was ruined.
Yeah, I think Alex Jones probably defamed those people, right? He said they're like crisis actors, they're faking. I think there's an argument you can make that's actual slander, right? But to say that he has to pay $50 million, that you're going to destroy his business, you're going to destroy his company, it's going beyond, I think, the spirit of the law, and it's hard to justify. Also, I don't know if you saw this. I wanted to show you this real quick. So these are from the judge's Facebook page. You have some filters here. You have hashtag stay home. It could save lives. The literal blue wig or die. I don't know.
Yeah.
The rainbow, love is love. I got my COVID-19 vaccine. We can do this. And then don't stop at the top. Vote for every Democrat. So, I see this and I think about when Kyle Rittenhouse was on trial, the media was apoplectic that the judge had like a ringtone of a song that was played at a Trump rally. And there was all kinds of coverage about that. And he made a joke about getting Asian food or whatever.
Yeah, no, and they were trying to like trying to figure
Only
out.
answer.
I wrote about this. Like the media was trying to kind of figure out who was on the jury, and basically scrutinizing the political views or the potential political views of the jury and the judge, right? But in this case, when you point out that you have this judge that's like just overtly far much so than the judge in the Rittenhouse
it just
trial.
wears it on her sleeve.
It's just like, well, hey man, judges have political views and that's fine. We have to assume that it doesn't at all influence like her perspective of the case. It's a joke. But it's I mean, like as Orrin McIntyre, actually I think it was Adrian Vermeule that said this, it's not hypocrisy, it's hierarchy. They think they're above you and they're going to lord it over your head and hurt you every chance they get.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's not hierarchy, it's hypocrisy. Or it's not hypocrisy, it's hierarchy.
Yeah.
Of one man and one woman. Family ties shall be based on marriage or the relationship between parents and children. To sum up, the mother is a woman, the father is a man, and leave our kids alone. Full stop, end of discussion.
I love Orban. I think I wish we need like an American version of him, as I've been saying this. And I think the Soros discussion, right, really brings another aspect of this to the fore, because I think a lot of people know that Hungary has very family-friendly policies. They basically pay families to have kids, right? To be families, right? But the thing that doesn't get enough attention, I think, is the fact that the government in Hungary has cracked down on the use of money by people like George Soros to influence policy and politics. And like, I wish that these laws that they've introduced, I think they specifically pertain to immigration, that they ensure that Soros could not basically fund illegal immigration in Hungary. They're called Stop Soros laws. I wish
I've never heard of this though. That's really interesting.
Yeah, just Google Stop Soros laws, and the laws were just intended to prevent Soros, because this is what he does, right? He funds NGOs that enact change in the target countries, and these laws were intended to stop Soros from using his money to do exactly that. So they're called Stop Soros laws. I think that's like next level political strategy for countering the effects of dark money from these subversive billionaires. And that's the thing that I'm really interested in, because I love the family policy. Like I have 2 kids. I want to have more. And I think families are incredibly important. But there's another layer to this, and that's using, the power of the state when you actually are in control and have competent people behind the wheel to take on these like international oligarchs. I don't know, whatever you want to call them. So it's obviously not just Soros, but I think he's kind of like the most high profile example of this type that uses their money to essentially push progressive politics in countries. I mean, but he's not the only one. Obviously, you've got Bill Gates, you've got a whole number of them, but he's kind of like the face of them.
Mm-hmm.
So.
What would you say as you say this? I can kind of hear the little the dissenter in my head, the centrist being like, oh, but that would violate freedoms, and America is about letting people have all this freedom. What would you say to somebody like that?
I think the policies of Soros tend in the direction of less freedom, right? I mean, that's the great, well, I wouldn't call it a paradox or an irony, but I mean, for all of like the freedom of movement and like criminal justice reform, like letting people out of prison and stuff like that, it actually seems to make us less free. Like the same people that are pushing criminal justice reform, which is another thing that Soros funds, it's not like the state is getting off our back and we're like just emptying out prisons and now there's like less police or something like that. It's like, no, the burden just shifts. Like now it's like people like us, like law-abiding citizens, that are getting tased for not wearing masks outdoors at like baseball games and stuff like that. It's the IRS cracking down on the middle class. And with illegal immigration, it's this. I mean, I think immigration is another interesting example of this. Like, we don't become more free when there are less borders or something like that. There's a whole actually larger state that arises to meet like the social welfare needs of these masses that come into the United. I mean, the best example of this right now is Eric Adams, who campaigned vigorously on like cracking down on ICE and preventing people from being deported and allowing a law to pass that allows people that are non-citizens to vote in municipal elections. What is Eric Adams saying right now? The mass influx of people that are non-citizens to New York City is burdening the social safety net to the point that
that's the mayor of New York City.
Yeah. Okay. He's saying that like there are so many people coming here that we can't take care of. Like
I did see that. Yeah,
the homeless population. So I think that you're right. Intuitively, you want to say like, well, what about freedom? But the reality is often much different than that. So
yeah, I agree completely with everything you just said.
If you're tired of small airplane seats, then you need to watch this video. Two incredible travel bloggers that I know were recently featured in this article, and the FAA is now soliciting public comments on if airplane seats are too small. Let's talk about it. For the next 90 days, the FAA is going to be soliciting comments from the public on whether or not the seats are too small on airplanes. They are trying to set a minimum required seating standard for airplanes, and you should go ahead and submit a comment. In this article, it mentions that only 20% of people are currently able to fit in a standard airplane seat. So we definitely need to come together, submit comments, and make a change. I'm encouraging all plus-size travelers to click the link in my bio and submit a comment now so that we can see a real change made when it comes to airplane seats. If you decide to submit a comment, keep in mind that they're actually looking for comments about safety versus comfort. And stick around because I'm going to make a part 2 to this video.
All of the time that she spent making that video, she could have been in the gym.
Yes, could have made it on a treadmill.
Weight, yes. Simply losing weight, and then that just solves all of your. Also, you'll live longer. Like,
hey, I'll play devil's advocate for a second. If we get bigger airplane seats, don't we all win in that scenario?
That's a much more compelling argument. We all win with bigger airplane seats.
Now, I did though. It does remind me of the words of a wise man. Now, these don't necessarily reflect the views of all the guests on the show here, but this guy has a sign that says, "Fat women are gross. Stop eating, you fat pigs." So
I'm not sure.
Yeah, see, it's not that cut and dry
that works, but it's to the point.
Yeah, it's also a valid counterpoint. All right, let's keep going.
Anymore because parents like you say don't bring your feelings into it. Fuck off. We're not bringing our feelings into it. You are. You don't like a fucking book that the reading teacher picked. Oh, you can't teach that book to any kids now. Pull that off the shelves. That's you. That's your feelings. Or when I would teach in science the Big Bang Theory and I get pushback because I didn't teach creationism. That wasn't my feelings. That was their feelings. I can't teach Big Bang Theory without teaching creationism. Go to church. Go to fucking church. That wasn't my job. All right? That's not my feelings. I'm teaching scientific fact. And yet I'm getting parents pushing back on climate change, evolution, the Big Bang Theory. That's your feelings, not mine. Your feelings. Because you're worried I'm indoctrinating them. No, I'm educating them.
Yeesh.
I think the obvious take here is that she's very emotional and she obviously does have feelings. However, on the other hand, I would say yes, you're right. I am in fact angry. Like if my son is 2 years old, if my 2-year-old son, or if they go to school later. So if my son were to come home from like, kindergarten or elementary school and told me like, we have a book that shows, a boy having sex with a transgender woman who's also underage, I'd be pretty pissed.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, absolutely correct. My feelings are in fact offended by you grooming my kids and making them dumber. Absolutely. And as someone who is essentially paying your subsidizing your employment as a public school teacher, you answer to me and the community. So I think that people like us shouldn't be afraid of actually harnessing that kind of anger, right? Mm-hmm. I think that anger is actually really powerful, and you have every right to be furious at what these people are doing when you drop your kids off at school and go to work, right? Like the last thing that you should be thinking about or worried about is teachers grooming your kids. And
right.
If that is actually the case, you have every right to be angry about it.
There, you heard it there, folks. Pedro Gonzalez says, go yell at your local school board.
Yes.
I'll say this, like, I don't 100% disagree with everything she said. Like they don't necessarily need to be teaching religion things in school. And, I will say this though, like the Big Bang Theory is not a scientific fact. It's a theory, and same with climate change. I wouldn't call that a fact. So a little bit loose with her language. My thing is, I mentioned this on the last show. I want to bounce this off you and see what you think. You've heard of broken windows policing, right? Which is the idea that you have to look out for the small stuff and deal with the small stuff. Because if you don't, you're definitely going to get the big thing. I have a new idea I've been working on. I call it broken windows teaching. And so when you see a teacher who has like a nose ring or just even acting overly emotional like she was, you're out of here. You're not fit for this job.
Yeah, no, those are red flags. I think we just call those red flags. And ultimately, we're really just kind of talking about intuition here, right? Like there's something about this person's mind or something about the way that they talk that just tells you, I don't think I'm comfortable with them being around my kids. Mm-hmm. And often, certainly as parents, that intuition is actually correct. Like your gut feeling, in other words, about someone who has a pride flag in their classroom is usually correct. Right. And I think it's to the credit of accounts like Libs of TikTok and the work of Christopher Rufo that we're becoming very aware to the fact that this is ubiquitous. It's not just in California or New York. It's in Texas. Yeah. It's in Louisiana. It's in Ohio. It's in deep red Arkansas, in Montana. It's absolutely everywhere. These people are insane, and you should be paying attention to the red flags.
Yeah, I hope Libs of TikTok doesn't get banned. We lost James Lindsay the other day. He was really going deep on the groomer word. They do not like that.
I've seen this guy before. He's a comedian, isn't he?
I don't even know. I have no idea. All I was gonna say is I think that's a man who has a BBL, unless he's stuffing his shorts. I think that guy has gotten like a Brazilian butt lift.
I think I've seen like clips on Instagram where it's like that guy will be walking down the street. I think it's him, and he's like walking down the street, and then like a reporter will like look at the camera like shocked, implicitly he's amazed by the size of his backside,
his posterior.
His posterior. Yeah, I think that guy's actually some kind of a comedian that does.
Okay, that makes
value.
sense.
Otherwise, he has incredibly well developed glutes. So,
what do you think of this gym technique? There's an old tweet of yours I remember because I thought it was really funny. It was something like the Virgin tracking your progress versus the Chad like intuition slamming plates on. I thought that was funny because I'm the same way. I don't like take notes at the gym or whatever. What do you think of this technique? Having some pinup girls. At
it
the
actually
gym?
seems. I think this is good. I think he's visualizing his goal right in front of him, which is low IQ and high back end. So it's great.
I worked with a medical intuitive, and she said every time she sees someone with Lyme, it's an intergalactic substance, and it's literally bringing in codes from the beginning of time.
Yes.
I know.
I believe this. This gives me chills down my entire body.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it in those exact words before, but I'm often trying to say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Lyme is a gift.
Yes.
It is not for the faint of heart.
No.
And it is for the most deeply spiritual people on the planet.
Yes.
Lyme. What do you mean by Lyme?
I think she means Lyme disease.
That's like what you get from ticks.
Yeah.
That causes like debilitating chronic illness.
Yes. Could that be a spiritual gift from extraplanetary beings? What do you?
It makes me think that like things like medicine and mass literacy were a mistake that prevented healthy selective pressures on society. I don't know.
That's the clip she chose for the promo, by the way. Like she made that. That was like that was the soundbite to make you want to watch.
She's so convinced of her position that it makes me actually intrigued. Like I want to know what about having chronic pain for the rest of your life or whatever, because that's what Lyme disease does. Like it's not something that I actually have. My sister-in-law has. She contracted that, and basically doctors misdiagnosed it until it was too late. Now she just kind of lives with it. And I want to maybe show this to her and ask her what she thinks. Like, did you know that you're blessed? Actually,
check out the Balanced Blonde for more hot takes on spirituality. Okay.
Oh, that's great.
This is an old clip apparently from like 2018, but it's new to me. I had to include it.
I think it's a year old, and it's actually from Ohio.
Okay. So I'll give the context to people here so they know. So apparently the ATF guy went to somebody's house and was like trying to audit their gun or take their gun. They had like an illegal shotgun or something. And the homeowner called the police on the ATF agent. So the guy you see here, this is the ATF agent, and this is the police body cam.
9171 103.
I'm a federal agent.
Get on the ground!
10-3. I'm a federal agent.
Why wouldn't you show me your ID when I got here? Don't move forward.
You didn't ask for it.
He is at 335.
Get on the ground. We'll figure it out.
On that 10-8.
Not getting on the ground.
Well, then stay where you're at.
I'll stay where I'm at.
Fine. Why do you got to make this harder than it is?
Listen, I'm not getting on.
I have no problem making this.
I just want to see if anybody in the precinct can respond as well.
You're the one overreacting.
I'm not overreacting. We got a call that someone's impersonating a police officer out here who doesn't have ID.
No kidding, because she doesn't want to open it.
Okay, get on the ground so I can find out who you are.
It ain't happening.
Okay, fine. Fine. Do you think I'm a police officer or something? What the heck's the matter with you? Who do you think you are? Get on the ground.
I'm not getting on the ground. I'm not getting on the ground.
91.7, I'm pulling up.
I got my ID.
Do not reach for your waist. Keep your hands up.
Dude, why would I have an O-leg shit?
Get your hands up. Get on the ground.
Face down now.
Now.
Face down. You guys are making a big mistake.
You are the one making a mistake.
Face down now. All the way down. All the way. All the way.
Yeah, I knew that this was in the Midwest, like when I first saw the clip on Twitter, I knew this was in the Midwest because of how kind of polite the police are. You know, what the heck, dude? What the heck?
That's the polite police?
What police is like heck instead of hell, you know?
Yeah.
And then the guy's like, "You're making a mistake," and the cop's like, "No, you're making a mistake." And this, like, his tone, it's like almost this kind of Will Ferrell.
What's the big idea?
Yeah,
big.
But no, it's. I mean, the word for this clip is Schadenfreude. If you only saw the Twitter clip, it doesn't give you the full picture of what happened. Basically, there's been this trend, right, of like the ATF showing up at people's houses, trying to determine what they claim are whether or not you actually are in possession of firearms that they've noticed that you've purchased.
Right. Yeah, they're like auditing, making sure you still have the guns.
Like a few years ago, when I first moved to Ohio, one of the first things I did was I bought a bunch of guns. And I brought several things at one time, and I walked out of the store with them. And there was a video that went viral a little while ago of the ATF going to someone's house saying, like, you know, we noticed that you purchase firearms in bulk. We want to make sure they're all in your house so that you're not buying these for the people. But in this case, according to the woman, because in the longer video, the police actually talked to her, she says that they came looking for her husband who had purchased a rifle. And I guess he wanted to make sure that it was actually in his possession. That's what she suggested. And then when she told him, "My husband's not home, you have to come back," she said that he was like, "I'm not leaving, and I can stay here all night," and was being, frankly, just kind of a jerk, right? And was, you know, banging on the door and stuff. Right. And that's when she called the police,
right?
Because the guy was being such a prick that I guess she was scared, and she said her kids were crying. That's what she told the police on the body cam footage, that her kids were crying because of how the guy was acting. But the best part is that, you know, her account is that the guy was being a complete, you know, hard ass and just being a total prick to this woman and her kids. And then when the cops show up, he's like, "Golly, I tried to show you my creds. Like, please don't tase me." And they put him on the ground, and he's like, "I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
I have a medical condition.
My wife is pregnant. I have a heart condition."
Yeah.
And like the whole time, he's like, you know, just
so
being
good.
Such a, like, I don't know if you can swear on your stream.
Oh yeah, go nuts.
No,
yeah, we're really
loose. Like he's being like completely, and then like his account of events, you can actually hear it in the longer video. He's like telling other cops what happened, and it's not even true, and he's just like acting as if he's the total victim. He was just
they just jumped on him for no reason. He was,
and it's all on camera. And there's one part where a cop kind of like smiles at one of the officers who was responsible for taking him down, and like puts his hand on his shoulder, kind of like, you did a good job. Like,
yeah. So,
everyone, it's so funny. Like even right now in like the era of BLM and stuff like that, everyone loves the police when they take down the Fed.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Sigma Rule 237. Call the cops on the feds. But it does tie into like the whole theme, which is like law-abiding people being kind of persecuted, right? They're sending people to your house for your gun. Yeah. There's another clip a little bit later about in Missouri. I don't know if you saw that clip with like Josh Hawley, whatever, the senator, and talking to Christopher Wray. We'll get to that in a minute, but it's more of the same thing. But anyway, this clip you probably saw a lot of people talking about this one, little short one, a little bit graphic. Warning here.
Yeah, very graphic.
I'm dead. I shouldn't laugh, but he's like, "I'm dead."
No, well, I think he actually survived, but my first thought was like, wow, multicultural Shakespeare in the Park is really, really, because that was the most like this dude sounds like Polonius, you know, like be it like, "Hark, I am slain."
This is bizarre.
Last I heard, though, he actually survived, which is shocking considering how many times he got stabbed.
Yeah.
And the first thing I know, apart from the fact that he, you know, announced very dramatically that he had been slain, the thing that stuck out to me was like how that Asian cashier was like really well trained in like edged weaponry. Like he was striking like vital areas, like there's an artery up here and like the leg and stuff. Like after he gets punched in the face, he starts stabbing him, And then like if you watch the whole video, he drags him to the front and it's basically just kind of discards him at the front of the shop for like EMTs or police or something like that. Like that guy was not playing around. Like you could tell that this is probably not the first time, in other words, that they had been like knocked over or something like that, right?
Do
like
you know?
this stuff,
I didn't really follow up on it. Do you know if he was arrested or anything?
I have no idea. I mean, they're
yeah, I don't know.
You know, people are saying that they will be, but I mean, I would be surprised if that was the first time that had ever happened.
I did see he had a GoFundMe and people were donating money.
People should. They should
like
absolutely support that guy.
Yeah. Every time somebody does something based, we have to rally. We got to.
Did you see that video? There was another recent video of a woman and her daughter. They get robbed by a guy with a shotgun. And then as he's trying to exit the building, they actually electronically lock the door from the register. And then he turns around with a shotgun. But by that time, they've actually retrieved 2 handguns from behind the drawer and they start shooting at him. And
it sounds awesome. I gotta say.
it is awesome. And they thwarted a robbery and shot him several. It was just an incredible exchange. But the point, you're going to see more of this, though. I mean, this is the essence of a narco tyranny, right? Basically, anarchy for criminals, for people like that get slapped on the wrist, and then tyranny for the law-abiding citizens, whether that's your home being raided by the feds, or your door getting knocked on by the ATF,
the IRS auditing you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I think you're going to see more of this kind of vigilantism as basically like the forces of law and order kind of retreat in a way, but in other ways, obviously they don't.
All right, so now we got this scene from CPAC here. We got Brandon Straka, who, for those who don't know, the kind of a conservative figurehead of the walk away movement. He's like a gay man who left the left, and that's his whole shtick. And he was at January 6th and being prosecuted for that. So this is kind of like an art installment that was at CPAC. There was a point where like Marjorie Taylor Greene was in there with him. What are your thoughts on this? I have some thoughts, but I'll let you go first.
I don't know. If I was like a CPAC organizer, I probably wouldn't have included this because I feel like somehow it cheapens it, because you can't really, it's difficult to communicate. It's difficult to really communicate what it's like to go through this. Mm-hmm. And it seems like any attempt to do so just automatically fails. It's really hard to convey, I think, human suffering in this way at like a political conference, So, but I mean, obviously the actual plight of J6 people is horrible.
Right.
And like I've written about it myself and I tweet about it often and stuff. But I think it's pretty much impossible to do something like this where it doesn't just seem to kind of flop in terms of presentation. So.
A little bit cringe. Obviously what happened to the January 6th and what is continuing to happen is very unfair, very bad, more political prosecution. But I just don't like this art. It's, conservatives have talked a lot about how we need art, we need conservative art. And I agree with that, but I would want the conservative art to be more inspiring in from a standpoint of strength and beauty and other conservative values, duty and honor. This is more like, oh, I'm the victim. It's more, to me, it's more like a leftist approach, a leftist paradigm or framework of we're the victims. They are victims. They are being victimized, but I just don't like this that much.
No, that's actually a very good critique of kind of the right's self-conception, right, as victims, as basically which is, I mean, this is true. And like I said, I write about, if you follow me, you know that I write about this and all that stuff, but at the same time, you basically can't base your entire identity on victimhood. At some point you have to kind of assume the new thing that I've kind of been talking about is conservatives often talk about, the barbarians are at the gates. Well, it's like, okay, hear me out. What if we are actually the barbarians? And we're the ones at the gates. That's how we should be thinking of ourselves.
I like that.
we're the ones that are trying to sack Rome when it is at the height of its decadence and degeneracy. So,
I don't want to spend too much time on this, but did you see this thing that was going around on Twitter a few days ago?
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately,
yeah.
I didn't read it. I read the first paragraph and a half and I was like, holy fuck, this is really pretentious. And I just noped out of it.
Okay. So I'll give you a summary.
Okay.
Basically, Mike Crumplar criticized some like indie movie, and then he was invited to attend some like art event and put on stage and forced to answer in front of a big audience why he had written this critique of this indie movie. And it was like a really surreal experience because like you have this guy on stage that's being kind of harassed by the entire audience, and they're like grilling him, and they're asking him like why he hates art, why he hates the person that made this movie, why is he such a jerk, like why did he mischaracterize like the actual movie itself?
Why does he call everything fascist? Like, I don't even know who this guy is. I mean, maybe it's too deep of a rabbit hole to go down, but
it kind of is. Because it's like it's this entire world that you don't actually want to know or care about.
Okay. You know what? Let's leave it there. Let's just leave it there.
I have like actually have a really kind of messed up take on Mike Crumplar.
All right, let's hear it.
There is this, I don't know if I should, like, this is the line that I tread on.
This is the show to do it if you're going to do it.
Serious political intellectual and like a poster. I remember this green text of somebody on 4chan that had a fling with a transgender woman, and it made him feel very inadequate. I'll just say that. and he wrote this massive wall of green text describing the entire thing and how it made him feel bad about himself because this transgender woman was more endowed than he was. I'm trying to be as euphemistic as possible here. Mike Crumplar is basically that guy. He's the one that goes through that experience and then writes 10,000 words about that experience.
I only read the first like paragraph and a half, like I said, but that drives with my impression.
Yes.
All right, let's
building an altar for your abortion can be a really cathartic procedure, can be a really cathartic process, because
this is another entry in the liberal white women must be stopped series.
Whenever you want to meditate, whenever you want to think deeply or contemplate any aspect of your abortion. It's a really beautiful way to just give reverence to the experience and hold the experience in a really sacred way. Really just clean the space.
Is she burning sage?
Clean myself.
I believe so, something like that.
I like to always have a candle going.
She's getting ready to like do like a self-abortion with pills.
Grandma's boy.
She really just symbolizes feminine fertility and feminine energy. I also really like.
Is that the Virgin Mary?
The abortion pills themselves to the.
Is she got the Virgin Mary right there?
It does look like. I didn't notice that actually, but I think you're right. It's some kind of.
Before having your abortion, I would even just.
I think that's the Virgin Mary.
Giving them a nice.
I'm waiting for the chat to start saying they can save her. They can fix her.
I thought that was a crack pipe, to be honest.
Your intention of healing into the pills before you take them. And place the container of which you plan to put the products of conception or the fetal remains within.
Did you hear that part? Take the container in which you plan to place the products of conception or fetal remains. So that's.
I really think that this is like a weird, like. This is we're witnessing the formulation of like a new religion. There's like Christian elements here, and like Oriental elements, and then like she seems to have some kind of a Native American necklace that has like an eagle. There's at least 3 or 4 different religions that are being kind of smashed together here with a like sprinkling of like white affluent liberal woman.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Uh,
real new age stuff. But I don't know. I know I always call my son the product of conception when I see him. I say, "What's up, my little product of conception?" All right, let's move on here.
Is that a maraca?
The email says that hiring practices have developed inside the State Department so that, and I'll quote, that certain candidates could not be hired because they have a disability. They are white men. They are straight white men. They are not of the, quote, right religion. All of these are verbatim quotes from the email of a senior State Department official. My first question to you is, did you clear this guidance?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I've never seen that before.
You've never seen the email before?
I've never seen it.
So you didn't know it had been sent?
This is the first time I'm seeing it, sir.
Well, do you know that it is happening? That the State Department perceives, and this is, I believe, as a result of your work, that they have a mandate to discriminate against, as the email says, to discriminate against people with disabilities, to discriminate against white men, to discriminate against straight white men, and to discriminate against people that are not of the, quote, right religion. I'm not sure what that meant, but I suspect it meant that if someone is a Christian. I don't know that because that's not what the email says. Are you aware these practices are happening at the State Department?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's ultimately not surprising, but it really, it's just a reminder that this whole idea that the United States today exists to serve white people, white Christians, whatever, it's complete nonsense. In fact, we've formalized and codified a system of discrimination against specifically straight white male Christians. I think that's like that fact is indisputable now. So the question is, what are we going to do about it? These hearings are useful in the sense that it just kind of exposes these things and reminds us of that fact, right? Because we have to listen to like Ibram Kendi talking about racism and how he's oppressed while he's getting millions of dollars to basically write the dumbest things imaginable. But what are we going to do about it? What is the solution to these things? And I think the GOP is really good at doing what Ted Cruz just did, which is kind of like, grandstand, but they don't actually seem to be good at coming up with a solution for this stuff.
Yeah,
So
there should be like legal challenges against that position even existing. Like she's like the head of diversity and inclusion at the State Department or something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but it's like that shouldn't even exist.
Democrats win in the midterms, but he's not doing that because his ego needs him to be the leader of his followers. And his followers are going to be when he siphons off voters from the Democrats, which will not work because forward party and third parties never win elections. In fact, they never even receive over 5% of the electorate. And Andrew Yang knows this. So what is he doing? He is picking apart the Democratic coalition to please his own ego. And what's the cost? American democracy. So guys, mark this video. Andrew Yang, if you think he's bad now, he's gonna get much worse. Do not listen to Andrew Yang. Ignore him, ignore the forward party, and continue to support Democrats. We cannot afford to waste any time on these third party candidates.
I can never not look at his teeth. That guy is something else. He's like a student at UCLA. I don't like to retweet him or give him attention, even if it's to make fun of him, because I get the impression that he's like,
that's why he's famous. Basically,
yeah,
right?
basically he's just someone who's really stupid and thrives on making these kinds of videos where he's like a caricature of himself.
Yeah,
it'd be really interesting.
Just his like whole business, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I might show these videos to my son and tell them that if you ever turn out like this, I'll be deeply disappointed in you.
Is he right? Is Yang Gang gonna siphon off votes from the Democrats?
I don't know.
Andrew Yang was a pretty hot commodity for a little while during the presidential.
But I think you can only do that so many times, right? Like you can't. There are a few people that can maybe get away with doing that whole shtick over, like Bernie Sanders, maybe, I don't know. But I think Yang, I don't think Yang is one of them. Like, I don't think guys like him can continue doing this. Like, but this time it's going to be different. Like, we're going to win. I don't get that impression with Yang. So.
The House.
Do you want to meet with them?
Let him talk.
Let him talk. All you want to do is
let him talk.
We already went there. He said no. He does not want to meet with us. He does not want to meet with us. He does not want to meet with us.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I saw that whole video and like
I forgot I even had that in there. I don't really.
Basically, Jon Stewart freaks out over this. Jack Posobiec is talking to Jon Stewart about like we should, get funding for medical benefits for 9/11 first responders. I think that's basically it in a nutshell. But Jon Stewart assumes that Jack is just like trolling him, and completely freaks out. And it's really weird because Jack is actually trying in good faith to basically say like, I agree with you. We should be helping these 9/11 first the few remaining people that. We're the first people to respond to 9/11.
Yeah,
crazy
to think they didn't get help still.
Yeah, but the gist of that is that Jon Stewart, just having like terminal lib brain, could not accept that Jack was actually trying to talk to him in good faith and reach across the aisle, and that's what that was about.
I think they did make up
at the end. Yeah,
at the end.
Okay, TikTok, I really need your help here on this one. I'm a teacher. I teach 5th and 6th grade, and this morning, I don't know, somehow the concept of pronouns came up. And one of my students said, well, Miss Odell, did you even ask me my pronouns? And I was like, whoa, I hadn't actually asked him his pronouns, and I had called him a him, and I said, oh, I'm so sorry, I haven't actually asked you what your pronouns are, and what are they? And he said, Banana said, banana and rock. And I was like, dude, no, like, don't mess around with. I was actually really upset because I thought he was making fun of it. And in fact, I'm still pretty sure he was making fun of it. And, but they all agreed, no, like, you can choose anything. Banana, rock, if you want banana and rock to be a pronoun, banana and rock's your pronoun. Is it? TikTok, tell me.
Yes, that's exactly how it works. You pick any pronouns you want, and then you have to respect it. Yes. Otherwise, you're the bad person.
The Chad child versus the virgin
the whole class
educator.
Just base kindergarten class.
Somehow pronouns came up.
Yeah, somehow.
This girl is on fire. This girl is on fire. This girl is fire. This girl is on fire.
You can get up and face. Can we ask you, ma'am, about this? Expired deli meat stored in the cooler for customers. Were you serving expired deli meat? Ma'am, don't touch the camera.
Don't put the camera in my face.
Hey, we need to ask
you don't need
about
to be in
these
my
violations.
face. Police.
It's not uncommon to get the cold shoulder when questioning a restaurant about a failing inspection. Denny's on Panola Road in Lithonia scored 52 points in a U for unsatisfactory. The health inspector busted them for expired deli meat, flying insects, and raw eggs on bacon and cheese. But these violations pale in comparison to this violation of civility.
You don't have to put the camera on nobody. Y'all can get out of here with that. Y'all can go ahead.
So we're not going to discuss it.
They're not supposed to be in the building.
So whoa.
Get your hands off me. Get your hands off me.
Hey.
You guys need to get out.
Hey.
Bye.
Hey.
The news is walked in here.
Come on now. Guys.
Bye.
Wow.
Bye.
So this is how you
guys have no right.
So this is how you respond to violations.
It's not the treatment even a news crew would expect from a place that calls itself America's Diner. And here's one of their employees.
My son right here, if you film me with that camera, I'm gonna knock your ass out. And I promise you that my son right here, son, don't do that because I knock your ass out.
Hey, that's assault right there.
I don't give a my son right here, you.
Is that how you talk?
Joey.
Is that how you talk in front of your son?
If only their kitchen was as hot as the employees.
Something I've seen more people talking about lately is like that they can actually feel the decline in the service industry and things. Everybody is talking about how you can't eat fast food anymore. You have a bad experience. I mean, things have been kind of going downhill for a while, but it's at the point where more people are talking about this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that, I mean, it's just like
officers confirmed we were well within our rights to question the restaurant, and we were not the ones.
Double standards, right? Like, I mean, there's an obvious thing here, and that
there's a demographic issue.
Yes,
that's part
there's a demographic thing at play here, where basically this group, because we've decided that basically Black people are, perennially oppressed in the United States, that somehow that behavior is less bad.
I'm not going to lie. I was actually like borderline amazed when the news reporter was like, "You talk that way in front of your son?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like, wow, he's actually like calling out the behavior. Like I would expect most people to just kind of keep their mouth shut, basically.
Right. Because I mean, the reality is that for saying something like that, the white news anchor is more likely than she is to like face consequences, right? Because his statement obviously comes from a place of like racial bias or something like that. I mean, it's like the big elephant in the room that no one's allowed to talk about. But it's resulted in things like, I mean, it goes from like these silly things like, the all Black staff of a Denny's or whatever being able to act like this to we decide that basically we need to change our laws in a way that is kind of consistent with the perspective of affirmative action or whatever. Like, and the worst example of this is like in Cook County, where you've got this basically there are cases of homicide that are being tried as mutual combat. Where mutual combat is exactly what it sounds like. There was one famous example of this, where two kids got into a fight. One of them stabbed the other one to death, and then in Cook County, it was not it was not decided as a case of homicide. It was considered a case of mutual combat. Basically, these two kids decided to fight to the death.
Yeah,
they
dueling
consented,
laws, basically.
Yeah, and we have to do that because sentencing people for homicide is somehow racist and white supremacist.
Yeah.
So therefore, we go back to the old school way of doing things, which is Thunderdome basically. So
yeah, and the thing is, when it comes to the demographic change, which we all know is happening, it's acknowledged and everything. It's younger. Like when you look at younger ages, that's where you see that. So people say like, oh, America's like 70% white or 64% white. It's like, yeah, that's when you look at the whole.
Yeah.
But when you look at like youngers and schools, it's the percentage is a lot less than that. And so you're seeing at who's working the fast food jobs and the jobs like that is the young people. So you're starting to see the decline there, and it's going to get worse. Like eventually those people will be the police officers and everything else. It's just going to get worse basically. So buckle up. Let's keep going.
That's going to be really would be very hard. But do you think the symbol of the clenched fist would be controversial?
Probably, but
I mean, to the point that we'd have to take it away? I mean,
it's
violence.
going to be the same handful of people who complain about it, and then it's going to be.
Yeah. Mayor. Yeah, it's stuff for mayor now. Statement.
I think I shortened this clip down, but basically this is like I don't know exactly where CDA, I don't know what that is, but the Arts Council, and they're like talking about erecting this like, clenched fist statue.
Yeah.
Which is basically like, when I see that, I'm thinking of communism and Black nationalism. It's like, which is kind of like a good symbol for the prevailing like liberal ideology. There's a lot of communism mixed with Black nationalism, this kind of weird mix. Anyway, there's not really a lot to say about that, I don't think. Oh, but it ties into that more Orban stuff.
Yeah, it's stuff for mayor now. Statement, but an important and.
But
I think that something that can be said about these like art installations is oftentimes they're funded by the public, right?
Right.
And so here you have these people that are saying basically they don't care what the public thinks. Like they're going to force this art on you. and I think it's significant. The people that are responsible for kind of cultivating taste.
It feels spiteful.
Yeah,
Especially when I see something that is like ugly like that, you know.
Yeah, you're right. It is ugly, and a lot of this art is in fact ugly, and it is designed to, I think, kind of provoke anger in people like us. I think.
And that's what they're talking about in the meeting. Like, I didn't want to sit there and listen to this, so I shortened the clip. But they're basically saying, "Oh, people are going to be mad," and they're like, let them be mad, and let's improve it, kind of thing. Yeah.
It's. I mean, that's a kind of a consistent thing with these people is at the same time they're saying that, you know, like this is an art installation about solidarity or whatever. Like, I think that was in parentheses. At the same time that they're talking about, you know, solidarity in art, they're consciously doing things to kind of provoke people like us. In other words, to sow division. And if you don't like it, then you, in their eyes, you've kind of just outed yourself as a racist, as someone who, you know, doesn't like Black nationalism, because who wouldn't like something like Black nationalism, right? So, you know.
Yeah, good point.
The globalists can all go to hell. I have come to Texas.
Okay, so this is, I'm trying to, the Center for Political Innovation. Have you heard of these guys? I hadn't heard of them until I saw this video, but
were they chanting "No more rights"?
No, so they were chanting "No more raids," which is referring to the FBI. They probably would be changing their tune today. I'm sure they're probably okay with raiding Trump.
Do you know anything about this group?
So I don't know a lot of, I know very little about the group, but I do know a little bit what they're talking about with the "No more raids." It has to do with the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, which is who these people are here, which are basically Black nationalists, like Black communist nationalists, like just like we were just talking about. And I don't know if you've heard of Ghazi Kodzo. The guy, he was recently arrested, and I don't even, if you haven't heard of him, it's another rabbit hole that we don't need to go down. But he had a similar organization called Black Hammer, which is another Black nationalist communist organization. And both of these organizations were recently raided by the FBI because they were allegedly, according to the feds, like getting money from Russia, and they're like Russian agents. And so this Center for Political Innovation, I don't know much about them, but they have a kind of, you know, the Intercept, that Glenn Greenwald's old thing. Like, they're always talking about how, like, oh, the feds crack down on Black people because of racism, basically. That's the vibe that I get. We can watch a little bit here and see what they say.
I've never heard of this group before in my life. Who's that guy in the picture back there? There's two people.
Yeah, I don't know. It almost looks like Lincoln, but it's not.
I don't know, maybe somebody in the comments can figure out who those people in the pictures are.
They called Martin Luther King Jr. a Soviet agent. They called the Nation of Islam.
He was.
We are here today to say that Black people have the right to organize, fight for their rights, however they choose, and that the U.S. government has no right to call them Russian agents or repress them in any way. The FBI raids must now stop. Must stop immediately now. Stop the raids.
Thank you for having me. My name is Columbayi Antoinette.
This is like, if I was like a Republican, like Warhawk, I would fund a group like this to make people think,
it's surreal, isn't it? It's so like, absurd. The whole thing is so absurd.
If I'm Liz Cheney, I'm funding this group, you know, like, to make people think that there's like a convergence of Black nationalism and like like Soviet, like that Russia is still communist or something like that. Yeah, like this is so weird.
Yeah, it's very strange. I'm going to look into them a little bit
Director
more.
Ray,
Try to figure out
I
what's
sent
going
you a
on
letter
with
last
that.
week about the FBI's decision to try to obtain sensitive personal information related to concealed carry permits in the state of Missouri. I've got the letter right here. Have you read this?
I have had a chance to glance at it, yes.
Good. So let's talk a little bit about it. Why is the FBI attempting to audit concealed carry permit records in the state of Missouri?
So I guess the first thing I would say is we will get you a longer, more detailed and specific response to your letter. I am generally familiar with the kind of audits that we're talking about, so I can give you a little information now, but we will follow up.
I'm generally familiar with what my organization is doing.
Yeah, this is kind of a longer clip too. We can kind of skip through it. I don't think we need to listen to it.
I love this. This is the second clip we've seen where you've got this like head of an agency who's like, I've never seen this before in my life, or like, yeah, I'm kind of familiar with what you're talking about. You know?
Yeah, just the gist of it is that the FBI is demanding the concealed carry permits from Missouri, and Missouri has a law that the feds aren't allowed to have that information.
Yeah.
So it's really on theme with tonight's show, which is the kind of this like federal crackdown on law-abiding citizens. Hawley does a good job of is that even his name? Hawley? I don't know, but he does a good job, I think, of taking a guy to task.
Hawley, yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, Hawley's interesting, right? Like,
I don't really know. Like, I'm not super deep into politics, but what I've seen of him, I like.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion, but it's very superficial. We keep going.
Yeah. Holding the spot down. Look at this, holding the spot down.
All right,
look at this. Is this even? Can you even do this? Look.
You must not be.
There's a parking spot right here. Look at this. Can you believe this? Look at this lady holding the spot. Look at this. Look at this. Look at.
Only countries that have ever been able to deal with people like this because.
I don't really.
I mean,
there's part of me that just says, you know what? Sometimes you got to look out for number one. Obviously, she shouldn't be punching the guy through the window, but I could kind of see, you know, I could picture a scenario where I would stand in a parking spot if I was under dire circumstances.
It seems like it's much more egregious than that, though. Like it's just something that's like, you know.
I wouldn't punch anybody who yelled at me about it.
Well, it seems like she's doing something that's like needlessly obnoxious and wrong, and you know, her action is from zero to punch you in the face. But again, I think we can agree that the real culprit was presumably the white man behind the camera.
I think he might have been Asian because I think they made
basically
some racial
white.
comments against
Asians are basically white now.
Yeah. Holding the spot. Look at this.
Coming out. Oh, equality.
Okay,
I've
John
ever been
Doyle clip. Nice little John Doyle clip.
There's a parking spot right here. Look at this. Can you believe this? Look at this lady holding the spot. Look at this. Look at this.
Sorry, it's hard for me to like skip.
Only countries that have ever been able to deal with people like this because throughout history, communism is simply literally dysgenic, miserable freaks getting angry at normal people and genociding them. The ideology is all just window dressing. You know, they're coming out, oh, equality, oh, and you know, the means of production. That's all just window dressing. That's all a rationalization. Fundamentally, it is the struggle of ugly against good and natural. Literally, in Spain, in France, in Russia, those people weren't even Russians exactly, but exactly this just seems to be the case all throughout history. So
it was like an ethnic cleansing type of like.
Yeah, I think he's basically right, but I also think it's important to try to like, you know, understand why these things happen. I think essentially with things like communism, it is completely irrelevant of the intentions of like so-called revolutionaries, right? I mean, I think of like the debates between James Burnham and like Trotsky. James Burnham was a really prominent figure on the American right, and before that he was a Trotskyite himself, and he ended up getting into this big debate with Trotsky over the nature of the Soviet Union. You know, was the Soviet Union actually a workers' paradise, or was it a different kind of totalitarian regime? And the name he gave it was was not socialism or capitalism or something. It was managerialism, something different from these two, that was oppressive, basically. That it was not, in other words, a paradise for workers. So I think it's certainly true. Like what you said, his name's John Doyle.
Yeah.
I think it's true that oftentimes, like, the communism, things like that. I mean, this is a very kind of a Nietzschean critique, that these things are really just like movements based on resentment, right?
Right.
Like the kind of like the freaks hating the normal people and wanting to immiserate them. I think that's
someone in the chat was even typing they're deeply resentful, just as you were saying that.
Absolutely. No, it's absolutely people that are resentful and loathsome want to make other people feel like them. I mean, it's the whole, we often say like misery loves company, right? In some ways that is like the essence of ideologies like communism, but I think it's still important to understand, like the intellectual debates behind these things. So
yeah, for sure. I will say, I think John Doyle basically took that from Mystery Grove publishing
I saw that.
tweet. Yeah. So know Mystery Grove, that's a good account to follow on Twitter.
Yes.
You catching this? Yeah.
We're getting near the end here. We're almost through it. Oh, this one. Okay.
Love this guy.
Yeah, let me give a little. So I don't know. This is the story on Twitter, is that this guy, the person in the car is a doctor who prescribed the COVID vaccine to a family member of the guy outside the car with the boomerang. And then the person who took the vaccine died. And so the guy is angry at the doctor. That's the story that went with this video on Twitter.
This guy looks like one of the extras from Point Break. I don't know if you remember Point Break, but there's that meth head gang, and the lead singer from Red Hot Chili Peppers is one of the guys.
Yeah.
He's in the Surfer Gang. That's the first thing I thought was like, this is like one of the guys from the Surfer Gang. I have no idea what the context of that video is. I know two things. That guy doesn't seem to like vaccines. and he's like someone who clearly follows like raw egg nationalist on Twitter. and he had a backup boomerang. I think that's the best part of that video.
Yeah, totally. The Aussie with the boomerang,
in his back pocket and pulls out another one and finishes the job.
Perfect. Okay, so this one was a Democrat city councilwoman, I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know, and she did a hit and run. She hit this person with her car, and then she called it in like 6 hours later. And did you not see this one?
On the intersection of MLK Street.
I don't think she was charged or anything as far as I know. So
it's amazing.
I will say in her defense, the cyclist ran the light. So it wasn't, she might've been speeding. It looked like she was speeding, but it wasn't necessarily totally her fault, but it was in New Jersey. Yeah. It's coming back to me actually. And I, when it happened, I looked up the law and it is illegal. If you hit somebody, you have to stop, even if it's not your fault.
Yes.
I'm nobody. Okay, put your fucking hands on me and find out who the fuck I am, bitch. That's what you fucking do. I ain't no fucking punk. I'm a United States Army fucking Ranger, and I just happen to be fucking transgender. So get the fuck out of my fucking face. Punk. You're a fucking punk. Okay, yeah, let's go. Let's fucking go. Yeah, I'm serious. I ain't no fucking bitch. You ain't even gonna fucking treat me like one, like you did over there. What? Because oh, stop it.
Hey! Drop it!
It's truly terrifying.
Yeah. And also, I don't know if you caught it, but the old man at the end walks up and he says, "Hey, big guy. Hey, big guy." Calm down there, big guy. Yeah. Whoa.
If dogs could talk, what would they say?
White Caucasian people should accept their extinction, and your over-reliance on in vitro fertilization and your use of birth control pills is really astounding in the world.
Oh,
here we go.
Oh, yeah, death penalty. I keep coming back to this. I mean, I mean, like, yeah, I hate the person that put that kid on the pole, but I hate the parents more. Like, I really think that it's a form of child abuse. Like, that's it. I don't care how you feel about it. I don't care that it's like, well, let people raise their kids how they want. Like, no, it's child abuse. It's clearly something that is intended to kind of to normalize an otherwise sexualized practice. In this case, pole dancing, right? And the fact is that it's not like, well, let every family do what they want, and if it doesn't hurt you, it's whatever. It's like, no, I mean, if your kids interact with those kids whose parents have allowed them to do that stuff, they're going to somehow like learn about it or be introduced to it themselves.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think
there's this old Facebook page that was so good back in like 2015, 2016. And he made these memes that became known as Smuggies. And the best Smuggie of all, the greatest one, is this fat guy who's saying like, how does the overall mental well-being of society affect you in any way? Mind your business, pal.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's the argument. Like, oh, who cares what other people do? It's like, no, we're a community.
Yeah. No, I think about this a lot as especially now as a dad. Like, basically, like, I can do the best possible job that I can to raise my kids, but I can't control what other people do.
Yeah.
And if other people have this like radically different conception of what's normal and acceptable, like, my son is 4, their kid is, my son's actually 2, but I'm just hypothetically, like we both have 4-year-olds or something, and their 4-year-old has been taught that it's actually perfectly normal for them to call themselves a girl. Yeah. And it's like, and then they have that conversation with my kid, and then I have to deal with it. So it does matter, actually.
I've had so many conversations with people who are saying like, hey, don't you think we should make it a little bit harder for children to like watch pornography on the internet? And people are like, oh, that's the parents' job. It's the parents' job. And it's like, you can't stop your kid from going online outside of the house and stuff like that. Like, you just can't. I did have a thought about that video. I debated somebody the other day, a couple weeks ago, about sort of the ethics of like encouraging homosexuality. And I was, one of the things I was saying is like, there's all these problems with STDs, you have the monkeypox thing now, and other, like the gay community has a big problem with STDs. And he was saying, well, we need better sex ed. And I was like, what are you talking about? We have sex ed. Gay people know about condoms. And he's like, no, we need gay sex ed, he's saying to me. And then I saw this old meme. This meme like resurfaced when the Ukraine war broke out. And it was like an old meme, an old leftist meme or liberal meme from when they were like litigating the gay marriage thing. And it's a pie chart, and it says what will happen if gay marriage is legalized. I'm sure you guys have all seen this, and it's like gay people will get married. That's the whole color. And then underneath it's like World War III will start, locusts and plagues, the terrorists will win, which, Afghanistan, like all these things came true. But there's another thing on the meme. There's one other thing listed there, which is they'll start teaching gay sex in school. And so I'm debating this liberal, and he's telling me we need to have gay sex ed in middle school. And I'm thinking, this was 5 years ago. Liberals were like pretending this was like a fear mongering, or whenever that meme was made 10 years ago, maybe. This was like, that was conservatives fear mongering. That's not going to obviously happen. And now he's arguing for, anyway, real quick too, I saw a study on Twitter the other day, and I couldn't believe this. Actually, I have it here. I want to pull it up just so people know I'm not making this up. This guy told me that they did a study and they found that 99.8% of LGBT teenagers no longer identified that way 13 years later. And I thought, that can't be real. And so I looked at the study, and you see it right here. Only 0.03% of the gay population were still same-sex attracted 13 years later at the end, because they did like this longitudinal study on this with like 1,400 kids or something like that.
Yeah.
And so according to that, these kids have a really high propensity to, I don't know how you want to word it, but like get confused about their sexual identity, let's say, which is just, to me, is just another reason why we shouldn't be encouraging it, you know?
Yeah. No, it's exactly right. I mean, there are obviously there are other like civilizational issues here. Like, I mean, if a large enough size of the population is no longer reproducing, then you don't have a civilization anymore, right? And that's the reality of things like the normalization of or I should say, treating homosexual relations as if they're perfectly normal and healthy as heterosexual ones. They're not,
Right.
for an obvious reason, is you can't reproduce. Your
Right.
society ends, right?
Right. Well, that was another thing I kept saying to him. I was like, what is the upside?
Right.
I was like, what is the upside of this? And he's like, there doesn't have to be one.
And I think the really interesting aspect of this whole debate of like, well, you know, more kids never identify as LGBT, and it's totally normal and organic. It's not. It's because
it can't be.
It's because the culture now hammers into the heads of children that to be gay or to be trans or whatever actually makes you better as a person than being hetero. It's glamorous to be gay or trans, right? It's glamorous. It's glamorous to be LGBT as opposed to hetero.
I've actually compared it to cult-like behavior, because what they do is they love bomb you. Right? When you come out as whatever, and what happens? Applause. Oh, amazing! Yes, yeah, you're so great. Yes, you know what I mean. It's cultish.
Yeah, no, it's totally right. And I think that the last thing I'll say is that there's this obvious disconnect. But I mean, to us as observers, we can see it, but the people that are saying these things, they don't. That basically people are born this way. In other words, it's something that's inherent, something that's immutable and unchangeable.
Immutable, yeah.
But at the same time, as soon as we think that someone is confused about their gender or gay or whatever, we have to do everything in our power to change their environment to basically affirm that lifestyle, whether it's trans or whatever, right? So in other words, it's these people are saying you're born that way, and also
as soon as you feel a different way, that's the right way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're born that. So it's nature and nurture.
Yeah.
But of course they'll never admit that. They'll just say, well, no, people are born this way. But at the same time, you know, in the case of trans, the moment that like your son picks up a Barbie or something, just out of curiosity, you have to suppress puberty, give them cross-sex hormones, and cut off their penis. You know.
Yeah. They love their affirmations. Anyway, I don't know if you saw this. This is a trailer for a new horror movie.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm guessing that some of you're not happy. Maybe you don't fit in. People make fun.
I've read the synopsis of this somewhere.
I can't make you straight.
Never seen the trailer before.
But you give us this week, and we might be able to help. Boys' cabin over there, girls' cabin over there.
I use they, them pronouns, as in they can't believe they're at this camp.
I have zero interest in not being gay.
There's no judgments in this room.
Sometimes I wish I was invisible.
God, Kevin Bacon, what are you doing, man? You've fallen so far from like Footloose and Tremors.
Queer bashing.
You can believe in any
Tremors
of
was a
this?
better movie than this.
Yeah, Tremors is great.
This is just like live porn, man. I guess
Come
the
in,
audience
please.
needs to watch this. Go ahead.
Do you think your parents are disappointed in you?
Sometimes.
So what do? You try to make yourself special. You become They. Today, we're going to be exploring traditional gender roles.
Look how long they've been doing this.
It's time to play.
This could get a lot worse.
Where's my killer?
We need to get out of here.
Taste?
Just enjoy the sunshine and work on your tan.
They slash.
I think about that
them.
that line from Aliens 3. You know, we need to nuke it from orbit. So way to be sure. Like that's what we need to do with Hollywood. No, I mean like all cinema, all TV series. It's just like lib porn.
Exactly.
They just
It's
invert
all
reality.
propaganda.
They just
So
invert.
annoying.
It's worse. They totally invert reality. Like the people that are pushing conversion therapy, it's not Christians. It's the people on the other side of this, like transgender affirmation or pushing homosexuality on children. That's conversion therapy. That's what that is. And the difference is that has the sanction of the state, right? Like the United States government is on the side of conversion therapy, just not in the way that's being portrayed in this they them film. So, and I think that all lib media, all lib culture is just like looking into a mirror where everything is upside down, and it's entirely aimed at that audience as a kind of affirmation of their upside down reality. Yeah, I mean, I hate this stuff. I think we should find a way to
you
keep
know
on
what? I think the world we live in is so ripe for satire, like for satirizing in a way that is actually funny. And
yes,
nobody is taking advantage. At least like when it comes to
you're
films.
totally right. Yeah, no, you're 100%. I don't know what it was, but something I think yesterday made me actually have that thought that like somebody with balls and money could make some
fun
really,
of these like lip shits. You know what I mean? Because they make satire, but but it's more lib propaganda. It's like, oh, the QAnon guys, we're gonna lampoon them or whatever. But it's like, just do it the other way around, man. It's so easy.
Streaming only on Peacock, August 5th.
Kids of your own?
Oh, this is the last clip.
No, I don't think I'll ever have any kids. I'm really not that type of girl.
Really? I'm surprised. I'm sure a lot of guys would like to knock you up.
Gosh, well, that would be a Christmas miracle.
What kind of girl are you?
Let's just say I'm a special girl.
What are you, retarded?
Let's have a chew. Now when I count three.
What was that from?
I believe that is a film that involves some X-rated scenes.
I was gonna say this kind of looks like an old porn from like the 90s or something.
Yeah, I just found it on Twitter. I don't,
that's great.
I definitely don't watch that stuff, guys.
I'll take your word for it. But no, that was actually pretty funny.
Yeah, that's funny. So that's basically the show. I hope you had a good time, everybody. And we can wrap it up. I don't want to keep you too long. Did you have any, I'm not in a huge rush to go, so I would like to open it up to you. If you have anything you want to talk about, feel free to let rip.
Are there any, I don't know if there are any questions or anything.
Oh yeah, well,
I'm looking. I can't see them. I have the comments here but I can't see anything, so I don't know.
Let's see. We got Polyfrog sent $5 and said, "Sorry, I can't donate more than a pittance." Hey, that's all right, Polly. Really appreciate it. Carl Sagan sent $5 and didn't say anything. And the last one from Sir Retsnom, who sent $5 and said, Army recruiting fails goal of 80K recruits. Democrats add 87K IRS agents.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. No, I think there's a there's just a tendency to kind of think that everything that's happening, all the insane stuff is somehow like deliberate and planned and part of some like, shadowy cabal's plan for taking over the country. And I think some of that stuff is actually true. But on the other hand, I think that we're in this era where I don't know how sustainable this kind of stuff is, right? Like, how can you normalize essentially hating your own country? And if you're white, hating your own, like hating yourself essentially, and think that this can actually last for an extended period of time. And I think that the most obvious, manifestation of the consequences of this is in military recruitment. Because put simply, people are no longer really patriotic about the United States, or a growing number of young people just kind of don't feel that way. And I think what's even more alarming is that it's not just, this is really difficult to talk about. It's not just that the left hates America, but it's that Americans feel that the United States government no longer really represents them and is in fact hostile to them. So why would you die for it?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that like these people, the ones that feel the way that I just described, they consider themselves patriots. And I think that they actually are. Like in a lot of ways, this is exactly who I am. Like I love this country. I love America. I have an American flag on my front porch, but I don't see a greater threat to my way of life than the American government, or the United States government, I should say. I try to make this distinction as clear as possible. And so I think you see this manifested in just a lack of people wanting to enroll. Like, why would you want to give up your freedom, like sacrifice time for your family to basically just be harassed by a gigantic woke HR department, which is basically the military now, right? Like, look at these generals like Kelly and Milley and stuff. Like, these are your superiors. I want to understand white rage, says General Mark Milley. Yeah. I think we're really in uncharted waters in terms of, I guess you could point to like the Romans and stuff like that. I don't know, but I think that we are uniquely self-hating and self-destructive right now.
Very black pilling.
In some ways.
Yeah.
And I think that actually this is necessary, right? Like I think you have to actually accept this and understand this before you can kind of take the gloves off. Because if you don't accept that things are as bad as they actually are, like that meme, if only you knew how bad things really are. Right. Well, once you actually know how bad they are, you can start to think clearly about what must be done.
Good point. Good point. All right, Pedro. Well, it's been a pleasure. I want to thank you again for coming on the show. It really means a lot to me. I want to repeat to everybody, if you're on Twitter, you have to follow Pedro, otherwise you're doing it wrong. So the link's in the description. Make sure you're following him on Twitter, and we'll just leave it there. Thanks a lot for coming, man. Hope you have a great night. Yeah. By the way, we didn't coordinate on the like Boogaloo shirts. That's just a happy coincidence.
I didn't even realize that you're wearing a Hawaiian too. Yeah, I grew up in California in San Diego. So like when I moved to the Midwest, I just brought like a closet full of Hawaiians, and yeah, so I have a ton of high quality Hawaiian shirts laying around.
All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. Let me know in the comments what you think, and we will catch you all on the flip side. Peace out.